we have created the database. Now we are going to create the API that is going to query that database. So what API do we need? So we want to we said that we want to add to internationalize our game. So we want to store in the database a dictionary, and then we want to when the application starts, we are going to start with default languages, default language, and then the user can select which language he wants to play the game in. And when the user does this, we want to load all the words for that language, and we're doing that by calling an API. The requirement for this is going to be those four APIs. We need to first of all to have an API that tells us which language are available. We want to know which language we can play the game in with, and then we want to have another API that is going to tell us the localized content. Um, we want to have all the messages in the game in the language that we chose. We also want to have the list of keyboards that are associated with this language. So in English, of course, we have QWERTY keyboard. We could have also QWERTZ keyboard. And maybe if we are in French, then we have AZERTY keyboard. So we want, when we query this database, we want to have returned the list of keyboard layout for that languages. We want to have all the messages in the game also in that language. So this is this API. Then we also want the API to tell us which word there is to guess. So typically we are going to call an API with the language that we want to play in. We are going to ask the number of letters of the game, of the word, sorry, we want to guess. And we are going to give an ID, which is typically an index. It's a number that is going to pick so let's say the ID is 5. So this API is going to return um, the fifth word with this number of letter and that language. Yeah, and the output is going to be the word to guess. Last API we need, last request we need is to know when the user makes a guess. We want to know if that guess corresponds to a word that is valid, that is in the dictionary. So yeah, 4 APIs. So to implement those APIs, we have a choice with a different set of languages. Let's assume that you found a programmer that only knows .NET. So in C#.NET. So in that case, we are going to use CodeNow Scaffolder for .NET. So let's go to CodeNow, and I'm going to create a component. So I already have my front end that I had before. And now I'm going to add in the same application, I'm going to add a new component, which is the API. So let's call that, Wordle API. Let's call it Wordle API.NET. And yeah, let's call it Wordle API. So we are going to pick C#. Okay, let's pick C#10. Let's pick NuGet and .NET. So this is a language, this is a build tool, and this is a framework.NET version 6. So we click confirm, and then as before with the front end, CodeNow is going to create a scaffolder that from which we are going to be able to implement this component. So this .NET scaffolder will come in a repository, which is here. I can have a look. So this is a scaffolder. There is nothing. There is a very simple API here, and we are going to modify the content of those folders to implement our application. So the first thing to do, as before, is to clone that repository. So I copy the URL, and I'm going to clone it. So I use GitHub Desktop to do that, but you could perfectly do this in the terminal. If you would do it in the terminal, you would just have to copy this string and paste it in a terminal. So for instance, this would be something like that. So I'm doing it from the GitHub Desktop. Let's clone the repository URL. There is already a folder, so let's call it a different name. Gradle API backend, for example, and we clone that. Cloning into git clone. Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, that happens because I put the wrong. Oh, sorry. Okay. Yes, I need to remove the string, and there we go. There we go. So I can clone it. It's cloning. Once it's cloned, it's going to be. I can open it with my editor. So this is Visual Studio Code. This is how did we call the API? This is this one. Yeah. So this is a scaffolder here, and we are going to modify this to be the code for the API. So I'm not going to code it together like here with you. I already did it. So imagine that you have a programmer, it works 2-3 days on this, or maybe 2-3 hours, because this is a very simple thing. And then let's start from the code already done.